Hello, hello! Today we got another battle replay for you. This time we are rocking the Wood Elves versus Subutai's Beastmen. We got Sisters of Twilight up in the air on their big old dragon. I find the dragon is very, very nice. Just to help clear infantry with the breath attacks, as well as the terror routes are really nice against low leadership factions like the Beastmen. And then they can also put down some missile pressure from the air, maybe snipe at a caster or two. We got a infantry line of Eternal Guard with spears. Then we have triple Sisters of the Thorn. So I decided to bring these ladies because they actually got a pretty significant buff coming to Shadows of Change. They used to have 48 models, now they have 60. That's an extra 25% HP damage output, all that jazz. So that's actually just a game changer for this unit. So I thought we'd bring them out today against Beastmen and see how they perform with these buffs. Beastmen are probably a pretty good matchup for them because a lot of light armor, enemy light cav they can fight pretty effectively. Their buffs and debuffs on their bound spells do pretty good work in those short cav trades against light cav. Against heavier cav, the fights take a little longer, so the buffs don't matter as much. But against Centaurs, who are just as fragile as we are, those fights tend to be pretty quick, so the buffs make a pretty huge impact. So, for our opponent, Subutai, he has Morgar the Shadowgave, which is pretty common pick in the Wood Elves. He has a ton of missile resist, he has 75% missile resist. So we can just walk up and start tanking our arrows and waste as much of our ammo as possible. And he can just walk at our archers and shut them down and be a general nuisance. Backing that up, we have Butchers of Kalkengard, our Minotaurs, Silver Shields, regen, some of the tankiest boys in the game. Just excellent at mowing through pretty much anything. Infantry, cavalry, single entities. These guys are just all around amazing. We have a front line of Zangors, and I did forget that Zangors were on the Beastmen roster for this. So they're actually a pretty hard target for most of my shooting, as well as my light infantry. The Dryads and Eternal Guards both have a hard time dealing with this really strong infantry. They have good armor, silver shields, the Besiege barrier, and good stats. So I'm actually kind of underprepared to deal with them. The only thing I really have that's effective against them is my Dragon Lord. So they are going to be quite a thorn in my side this game. On top of that, we have a bunch of Ungor Raiders, we have some Ungor Spearman herds, and more of the same. So, go on the road, shall we? Fast forward a little bit as we do start just pushing up to poke. I'm gonna get my, what are these called? Sisters of the Thorn up here and just start skirmishing along with my Lord. I did get a little caught off guard by Ungor Raiders. We do manage to dodge most of that volley and get some poke back of our own. This is one nice thing about skirmish cav, obviously. You have mobility advantage. You can kind of take engagements on the enemy archers at your leisure and dodge pretty effectively, whereas they're just stuck in place and taking a lot of damage of your own. Though it's kind of micro-intensive to do so. Our Lord's just shooting up and trying to get some Zangors, as they are, like I said, they're our best answer to the Zangors. Silver Shields block the normal skirmish fire, so we gotta rely on that, basically artillery fire from the Sisters of Twilight. And just skirmishing, doing as much as we can. We're just trying to wear down all of the infantry line because we are pretty light on infantry ourselves. We're going to have some archers to try and support, but really we just have a couple of spearmen up front. We really are relying on the Sisters of the Thorn to do a lot of the carrying. By the way, this is the new map. It is lizard themed. Don't recall the name off the top of my head, but it is pretty nice looking. We got 2 points on the side in the water, as well as this big center objective, and then this sneaky little route through the trees in the middle for rotations. Yeah, skirmish gap, wearing down the Zangor. Centaur's going to come up and try to pressure us out. Morgar as well is going to do what he can to just try and soak that missile fire like we talked about. And the Butchers as well are going to come up and try to pressure us. But the Centaurs need to be a little careful. They are quite soft to our skirmishing fire as well. And we do have these Glade Guard coming in to help us out as well. Side caps are going pretty well. Nobody's actually progressing on that side point. The fight is all here in the middle. Got a breath attack coming down on some of those Ungor Raiders. We get some nice damage on them and a little bit of collateral on the Zangors. Doing some pretty good work there. Morgar is pressing up to the front lines, and this is a bit annoying for us because now our skirmish cav can't really be on fire at will. If they're on fire at will, they're just going to shoot Morgar, and he is so tanky it's just not worth shooting him. So it's really not worth our time. We get some terror routes on these Ungor Raiders. The Centaurs are trying to come in and punish, but our skirmishers and do good work to punish them in return, and our dragon is pretty free to do what it wants as long as it's in range of our archers and our skirmishers to cover it and keep it safe. Morgar's just going to push into our backline, be as annoying as possible for our archers, so they're just going to run away. We'll try to get him stuck up in some spears at some point, but for the moment he's just going to be a royal pain in the derriere. Dragon is a little caught, but nothing here does a ton of damage to us. We got Shield of Thorns popped from one of our Sisters of the Thorn. Keep it up alive, and we got Flock of Doom from the Beastcaster that I did end up summoning. Okay, we got a Cav engagement, Shield of Thorns popped, and maybe Curse of Honor as well, so we're actually winning that Cav engagement pretty handily. Although, when the Butchers start showing up, we do need to bail, because nobody really wants to be fighting the Butchers in melee. We can just kind of drown them in spears a little later. Skirmishers are just backing off and dragging these Centaurs through the mud. Now, I did turn off Fire at Will on my Sisters of the Thorn because I was shooting Mortar and didn't want to be, and I don't think I remember to turn it back on. So I got really confused like halfway through this game when my Sisters of the Thorn had so much ammo left. And I didn't realize because I turned off Fire at Will, so I'm not actually going to be shooting all that much, which is a bit disappointing. Another flock of Doom coming down, just trying to wear down those Zangors. Like I said, I forgot they existed, at least on the Beastman roster, so I wasn't super well prepared for dealing with them. But we will, find a way. Sister of the Thorn Sister of Twilight rather, are trying to beat down Morgar, get him out of my backline, do what we can. Much as possible. There is a Bracesham of the Wild coming in with Traderkin to try and punish our blobs a little bit, and there it goes, right on our Lord and our caster. Get some nice damage there. Our Sister of the Thorn are just sitting behind our line at this point, shooting the soft targets we can find, which with the Calcon Guard have been run around a little on the side, and we are taking a nice Cav engagement, and we do summon some Wild Riders. These guys also got buffed. Their stats are unchanged, but they got a good deal cheaper. I think they're only 1050 now. So I decided to bring these out and try them against, again, another nice faction to try them against with all the light armor of the Beastmen, and they do mop up those Centaurs quite nicely. And now we have a nice route to flank coming up here on the left into all of these unprotected archers. Get some really good work done. Now, we have been forced off the point mostly. We have also pushed up on the far side with our spearmen. The Ungors have bailed out as they are unprepared to deal with the superior numbers. So we should take that side point, at least for a while. Butchers of Calcon Guard are getting a little bit deep to try and chase down the Deepwood Scouts, but the Sisters of the Thorn are punished from range, as well as the Sisters of Twilight. So many sisters in this army. Really, didn't think that through when I planned to cast this. Yes, punishing the Butchers of Calcon Guard. They're locked between several different missile units. They're going to be taking a lot of damage. They catch our Sisters of the Thorn for the moment, but we are able to just scamper them away pretty quickly. Shield of Thorns is popped, so they're taking a little bit of damage themselves, as well as Curse of Honor here. So they are doing quite a bit less damage. Dryads into the back. They are lightly armored, and with Curse of Honor here debuffing their melee defense, they are in for a bit of a beating. Under Spear and pour in, but they are a huge threat to our Sisters of the Thorn, who have all those buffs popped, and with the Sister of Twilight helping out, they are doing just fine. Trying to rout off these Zangors. Again, the Dragon is really our only recourse into the Zangors, so we got to get what value we can. Morgar is trying to snipe at my caster, and I think he will succeed in that. He is a pretty sticky target, and yeah, down goes our caster, but that's fine. She's only about 400 gold, so if we really need to, we can resummon her. We get some terror routes on these Zangors and the Centaurs. The Spawn are trying to wear us down, but we should be able to get out just fine. And our Wild Riders and Dryads have broken through on the far side and gotten into that Beastman missile line. The Ungor Raiders are completely unprotected, and the Wild Riders are into the cookie jar and just running down all of these tattered Ungor Raiders, getting a lot of nice routes for us. And kind of, knocking our opponent's feet out from under him. His front line's really heavily committed, and we knock out the missile support. He has a much harder time aggressing onto us. Our Lord is just trying to escape from these spawn. Really don't want to fight them. They're summoned, so we might as well just wait them out rather than try to kill them. And they do a good job of actually beating on our Lord, so we want to get out of there before we take too much damage. On the far side, we have taken this side objective, but our opponent is pushing back pretty heavily with some Gore herds, some Ungor herds, and Gore herds. With the cannon against our spears. Bring some Sisters of the Thorn over to try and support, but again, I forgot to put on Fire Will, so I'm going to park them here on this objective, and they're going to not shoot for like a minute or two, and I felt silly. Sisters are getting pretty low. We got to get them the heck out of dodge. These spawn are a big threat to it, so we bring some Dryads in to kind of sacrifice for the sake of our Lord. And we do get back in the air, get more skirmishing shooting off. Get another nice breath attack right into our own Dryads, completely wiping out our own infantry line, exactly as planned. Just as the Chaos Gods intended. Anyway, more Zangors coming in, and yeah, the Zangors proved to be such a huge problem for me, because I wasn't prepared for them, and they are just so tanky against everything I brought. We have Dryads, we have non-AP skirmishers, like nothing we have is equipped to deal with armor. So it was a bit of a mistake for me on the build phase, but we will do our darndest. And some Dryads sneaking up through the trees, trying to get a flank on that right-hand objective, and yeah, these guys are just parked here. Oh, they are firing! I must have realized. I thought these guys weren't on Fire at Will. Okay, so they're applying poison, slowing down the melee fight, and keeping that in our control for a while, which means we aren't actually falling behind on the objective tickets, despite getting pushed back pretty heavily in the center. More and more Dryads coming in, and now I'm just kind of making a mad dash for the point. Got another Traderkin coming down on our Sister of the Thorn as we do go for the snipe on this caster. It is fairly weak to our big dragon character, and it does get a terror out almost immediately. We are able to just chase it down and finish it off, I believe. Centaurs coming in to just try and stuff us in response some more, but the Sisters of the Thorn are doing our best to win these cav engagements, which they were doing surprisingly well. For a hybrid cav, they were actually giving it to the Centaurs quite a lot, and I was very impressed by that. They did really, really well in melee, especially considering, again, I wasn't having the fire for the majority of the game. Yeah, Sisters are going to chase down that Beastcaster. Our Wild Riders have actually looped all the way around behind. Now should have a good angle to come in and get some rear charges on these Zangors in the center. Now our opponent's reinforcements do seem to be dwindling. They're sending a lot of resources over here to the right-hand side, where they are making very little headway. Eternal Guard are very, very durable against all the Ungor Spears and Gore Herds. The Dryad flank comes in as well and collapses the one flank, so our opponent is making little headway and is being forced to dedicate a lot of resources over there, which means we are starting to push back in the center. Morgar is still just in the background being a nuisance, but our Lord is completely uncontested on the center point. No archers to threaten, no cav to punish, no minotaurs in the area. Our Lord is just free to run around and get terror routes and kill off any of the Zangors, or these RR Black Horns Ravagers? Yeah, it's the Black Horns Ravagers. But we are pretty slim on infantry. This build I brought just kind of lacked infantry, and I'm really feeling it about this point. I have very little to resummon that can actually get on that objective. Most of what I have to summon is cavalry or missiles, and that was a bit of a mistake on my part. He does try to get the punish on my Lord over here, but we should be able to just skedaddle out. She still has her passive conjoined Jetsney that has not popped just yet, so if we get any lower, we will get a burst of healing and be just fine. The fight on this right objective is going quite well for us. We still have pretty hefty cavalry dominance. We have been taking those good trades, and we have some pretty elite cav still on the field. The Wild Riders are going to come and actually bail out our Lord and get a kill on these Centaurs. The Wild Riders, again, they were doing a lot of work for us. Their value might not show up, but they were winning a lot of cav duels, so we kind of had mobility control, which is something the Beastmen aren't used to being at a loss for. So, the cav are definitely doing a lot to help me win this game, help me control all these side points, while also keeping pressure in the middle. Cav dominance really, really was very clutch in this game for me. Yeah, these Sisters of the Thorn still have so much ammo because I forgot to put them on back on fire at will. And we do get a bit of microlapse as they do get charged by Centaurs, as our Wild Riders are routing right through them as well. But our Dragon Lord is back in the air and coming over here to try and get some nice tear outs on these big infantry blobs. If we have breath attacks left, this would be a lovely time for one. Now, we've used all our breath attacks, unfortunately, which means these juicy, juicy infantry blobs shall go unpunished for the time being. Our two Eternal Guard are finally being worn down, but honestly, they've held this point for at least 5 minutes, just almost by themselves. They've been fighting and grinding against these Beastmen infantry for so long, more than proving their worth. We get a nice rear charge from Sisters of the Thorn, hopefully riding off some of those Ungor Spears and maybe some Gore Herds. The Beastmen do manage to flip the point, and we are now rotating back towards the center with our Lord, trying to just finish off these tattered Beastmen units. Blade Riders get a nice charge in the rear of these Ungor Raiders, routing them off permanently. Now we do have this one nice infantry blob, which is just perfect for our Lord to land in and try and tear out off all of those Beastmen. Come on, sister. Yep, and the terror routes come in, the Beastmen are fleeing, and we do begin to re-secure the center objective for the forces of the Azrai. And our second wave of infantry is coming in. We got some Dryads coming in, our Beastcaster has been resummoned on the far point. At this point, on this side, I know I don't need Objective 2 anymore. I'm going to take Objective 1, so I'm just going to try and summon Dryads to defend Objective number 3 and hold my opponent back. Although he does have a pretty staggered amount of forces here, so once my spears break up here, there's going to be an unholy tide of Beastmen coming for Objective 3, so I need some more reinforcements over here. I've got some spears on the way to do just that. We are retaking Objective number 1 quite heavily. Sisters of Twilight have popped their heal at this point. They are hale and hearty and ready to keep fighting. We got some spears here that are pretty much going to be outclassing anything short of the Zangors, who are, as I said, just huge, huge nuisance for me. You guys have been fighting here for ages. We have some more Gore Herds coming in. The Sisters try to intercept, keep them off the objective, so we can just hold as long as possible and get some points on the board. Trying to just get our point lead a little bit further ahead. But the Zangors are in the back chasing down our archers. Oh, these aren't Zangors. These are Blackhorns and... okay, there are Zangors. Half coming in to intercept, though, and the Deep Woods are going to be just fine. Get out of here safely. Morgar is grinding away in the spears, but he is having little to no impact as he Doesn't do the greatest clearing infantry. He really just wants to be in the back disrupting archers, which, we've kind of denied him at this point. There's not a whole lot of archers left. These guys are routing to the cav charges as well as the crossfire from the Deepwood Scouts. Very, very nice work there. On the far side, that Beastman tide has come just as we anticipated. We push forward to try and intercept them before they get on the point. We do our best job of having our Dryads intercept. And Dryads, the reason I brought so many Dryads, again, I didn't remember Zangors, but they do so well against Gors and Ungors. They do really, really well into all those lightly armored infantry, and even the Centaurs they do quite well into. So, aside from the Zangors, they do really, really well into pretty much everything the Beastman can bring. Block of Doom coming down, trying to rout off these Centaurs, trying to deny my opponent them ability control. Sisters of the Thorn are still around. These are the same ones from the beginning of the game, just scrapping, trying to get these Centaurs under control. Hold this point for us. The enemy infantry tide has largely been nullified. Not a whole lot of infantry left for my opponent. It's really just a couple of Centaurs, which are going to have a hard time pushing onto the point when there's so many spears. We have another Wild Rider coming through, but I think the right side is under heavy control at this point. We are going to rotate back towards the center, as there is a large resurgence of Beastmen heading for the center. Our Lord is just grinding as much as we can, air routing off whatever we can, and the Wildcaster is back. Just trying to run down our archers, who are pretty much just here to be cap weight at this point. We can't really afford to lose this point, so we want to keep them online, even if they don't have any ammo, and aren't that good in melee. Our Lord is just trying to run from Morker and get back into the air, and now I do see a very, very juicy Bray Shaman, who is stuck up in our cav, and is just a perfect target for the Sisters to come and kill once again. Don't get hit just there, but do we get another hit? Oh my goodness, this is such a mosh pit. We got Wild Riders, we got Centaurs, we got a Dragon. This is just such an unholy mosh pit. Look at all of those beautiful, beautiful Elven Cav units. Just kind of running game on the Centaurs, who are much cheaper units. You kind of expect them to lose, but still. Taking the mobility advantage away from Beastmen is a huge advantage. At this point, we only need 200 points to win, so we can just focus on an objective. But honestly, we're feeling pretty good. We won that fight on the right side, so we can push forward and pressure objective number 2, which means our opponent has to split his resources, trying to take all 3 objectives simultaneously, and wearing himself rather thin. And the Beastmen are definitely on their last legs in this fight. We're up, honestly, only 1,000 value, but it feels like we've had pretty good control of the objectives this game. So we are doing just fine. Later as coming in, getting some charges on those Gore herds and the Ungors. Doing what we can. Wild Riders intercepting the Zangors. Not going to do a whole lot of damage. They're not armor piercing, and the barrier kind of negates it. But we hold them off the objective, so we can clear out what's here. And then we can kind of just force the fight off the objective, so our opponent has no hope of recapping in any reasonable amount of time. Down to only 100 points remaining. Still holding 2 objectives just fine. Even push forward to objective 2 if we like. Although there are more Zangors and Gors coming. We're just, again, going to intercept them before they get on the point, that they have no chance of capping until they've killed us completely. And Wood Elf leadership is really good. Dryads have, ITP and decent leadership. They have Eternal Guards with good leadership. We can hold them off for quite a while. And the Beastmen just don't have the time to actually get back on these points. They don't have the troops on the field. They invested pretty heavily in Cav, it felt like, and we were doing pretty well trading in the Cav fights. Our Wild Riders and our Sisters of the Thorn actually did a good job controlling the mobility game. And I feel like that paid a lot of dividends for us in this game. Just controlling the side objectives, rolling the fight, getting around to back onto his archers and shutting them down, doing a lot of good work. 10 points to go, and Beastmen have no more objective control in sight. And that, my friends, is going to be that. Yeah, the Sisters of the Thorn, I felt like did pretty good, especially since, I didn't have them on fire. Well, for a long time, so most of them didn't spend all their ammo. Sisters of Twilight did amazingly well for me. 3,200 value and terror routes all over the place, as well as just absorbing a lot of pressure and magic from my opponent. Really, really solid piece. Sisters of the Thorn, they cost, what, 1,100? So 2 of them paid for themselves, 1 of them didn't. But again, I did have them spend all their ammo because I forgot to put them on fire at will. So if they had been on fire at will, I imagine they would have done even better. Eternal Guard doing quite well. Wild Riders did okay. 1 paid for themselves, 1 didn't. Although this one I think was still alive at the end. I'm not 100% sure. But they did a good job of controlling the mobility game for me, shutting down my opponent's cav, and making sure all of my shooting pieces were able to just be nice and safe. Zangors did okay. Yeah, Zangors are just so obnoxious to deal with. So fast, they're so durable, they have good melee stats. They feel like a massive, massive buff to Beastmen. Just having a decent frontline unit that they never had before is great. Because, usually when I play Beastmen, it's like, well, they have Gors and Ungors, and neither one of those are very cost-effective, and they're squishy. They have a hard time maintaining a front line outside of, the Minotaurs. So having a durable frontline unit, it's 700 gold, so it's not super cheap, but it's cheap enough that you can field a lot of them. So it's just a game changer for Beastman. This caster did a lot of work. Yeah. Centaurs, I feel like we did a pretty good job shutting them down, but they actually got pretty good value. I think probably got summoned multiple times. Not exactly sure. But that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for stopping by. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz, and I will see you next time. Peace.